Well, hi. Welcome back to the videos. This is the third video for project number 5. The first two videos dealt with the exercises. This one deals with the project itself. And once again, we're working with a portrait as subject matter. It can actually be the exact same selfie that you used in project number 4. What we need is an image that we can crop it, and the face occupies about 80% of the frame. Yes, that is me when I was little. So I'm going to use this as my source today. What we're going to do is experiment with color palettes with a single image, applying color palettes like complementary and monochromatic and analogous to the same image, and then be able to sort of compare them one to another. We're going to do this 9 times with the single file. So you're going to make 9 different color adaptations. From that, 2 of them are going to be then painted in gouache. So we're going to start with the digital and then work towards gouache. Before beginning any of these project components, I would say complete the exercises, complete the color wheel where you've used gouache, gain some experience mixing it. It's part of the reason why that was assigned. And then also the color grid where you were going out and looking for color, and the color portfolio exercises are probably ongoing where you're sort of noticing complementary colors in your environment. All of that would be helpful to have completed or with the portfolio in progress before you start this, just so there's just a more of a heightened awareness. What you're going to be submitting for this project then eventually are 9 separate digital files that are going to each be named with the color scheme you were endeavoring to create. And there's going to be 2 uploads of photographs of your gouache paintings. So 11 things in all. 9 digital, 2 painted, and then documented. All right, so first we have to get 80% of the frame to be the face. I'm going to say I'm not quite at 80%, so we're going to go to the crop tool. You still may have the 2 by 2 inches selected from the exercises. If so, just delete that, right? And then as well, the pixels per inch, going to delete that if that was the case. And then let's adjust our crop marquee. I'm going to hit return twice. There we go. Next step is we're going to convert this to grayscale. We have to posterize this to get us into 4 layers. So we're going to first convert it to grayscale because that's how we access posterization. So first grayscale, then strangely right away back to RGB color. It's not going to convert it back to color. We're just going to be looking at that grayscale as represented in the channel's RGB. It probably doesn't make a lot of sense right now as to why I would do that, but as we move into the project, you'll see in just a minute or 2 here. All right, now I have to posterize it. Image, adjust, posterize. This is going to be somewhat familiar. I'm going to pick 5 as my layers because that'll give me 4 values of gray and black and then white. So the white, we sort of call it as free. It comes with the color of the canvas in digital or the Bristol board in analog painting. So here we have the white, we have the light gray, we have the middle gray, we have the dark gray, and we have the black. So it's 4 gray values or 5 values in total. Okay? So now we have that posterized. So one of the first things to do to bring color back into this is to image, adjust, and let's go into hue and saturation, right, as an adjustment. And we're going to click on this button here that says Colorize. And you can see that it adds a tint right away. You can slide this hue around, and you're basically right now working with a monochromatic palette. You can pick the hue for that palette, but by sliding this around, you can say, oh, I'm going to stop right about there. I'm going to like that. I'll say, OK. And we are going to then File, Save As. We might say something like Elizabeth when little, not quite, Elizabeth .dove, and then we would say monochromatic. And we're going to save that, of course, as a JPEG. Okay, so we could do that. I cancel out of that. I'm going to go back into my history over here and just return to the posterization, get rid of the hue and saturation. It might not be a bad idea to just image duplicate right here. Image duplicate will keep us, will give us our unaltered one, and then we can always have a backup, to go back into. as we make these adaptations. So that way, with the adjustment, is one simple process, and you can do some nice. Maybe you could do 2 or 3 different, or maybe 1 or 2 different adjustments, just using that slider with color. And also, you have the ability to do. I should also say, you also have the ability to do the slider with saturation as well. So after you've changed your hue, you also have the sense to saturate that more or less, depending on what interests you. So options exist there. Of course, I'm going to make this a little bit more complicated for you. We're going to go back into that color range tool. And what I would like to do is select out each of these 4 layers so that you have a selection only of the light gray values, only of the middle gray values, and then we can load any color we want into that rather than relying on those sliders. This is more complicated, but it's going to give you a lot more options. So select color range. Okay. We're going to maybe have the fuzziness, let's try like something in the mid-50s. That was the example anyway. You're going to make sure that this is selected here, selection rather than image. That should be clicked. You have the little eyedropper here. And what we're going to do is we're going to click on the lightest gray within the image. And you can see over here, the window has shifted to demonstrate it's only selecting the light gray values. I can click here, select all the middle gray values. It does these non-contiguous shapes, so it'll pull something out of this corner even though it's not linked to this corner over here. So color range is a super easy and great tool. Let's click on that, and we're going to say OK. And there it is, all marchy ante, as we like to say. So that now has selected all of the light gray values. What we're going to do now is actually try to save this selection. I could fill this with color right away, then I could pick the middle gray and fill it with color, but then I'll have to do this 7 or 8 more times with my, to get my 9, the 9 files I want you to submit. I don't want to have to do this 9 more times. I'm going to show you an efficiency, a shortcut here. We're going to select, and we're going to save selection. Okay, so by saving this selection of these marching ants on the lightest gray, I can reload it later. You're going to like this. I'm going to call this, it's going to make a channel. I'm going to talk about channels here in a minute. I'm going to call it lightest gray. I'm going to try to spell it right. I love spelling things right. Okay, all right. And then I'm going to deselect it, right? Or I could just do the Command D. I'm going to go back into the color range. I'm going to do a second one here just to show you what I'm up to. I'm going to pick the next gray. Okay. I'm going to say OK. I'm going to select, save selection. I'm going to call this middle gray. And I'm going to deselect. So, where is this gone? Is it a layer? Is it a layer? It is not a layer. Look at my layers palette over here. Those things I saved called lightest gray and middle gray are not layers. They're actually channels. Don't know if you've dealt with channels yet, but let's talk about what those are. It's a fancy part of Photoshop a little bit. So we're going to go into Window, Channels to make that palette visible. Whoa, there it is over here. Let's put it in this same space. Let's close our paths. We don't care about you. Oh, sorry, let's close that. Okay. So what we have over here is RGB, which we don't currently have any red or green. So we can turn these off. Like you could. This is only the blue channel. This is blue plus green. Strangely, this is blue plus green plus red. So it has the RGB in totality. It has the red, the green, the blue channels individually. Then, interestingly, it has 2 additional channels that we named. So I could click this on. I could click that on. There's my lightest gray selection. Only the lightest gray is selected there. This is only the middle gray is selected there. So I'm going to be able to return to these in a few more steps and reactivate them, right? Reselect them and fill them with color. Confused? Maybe you are. Let's just keep working. I'm going to go back and click on all of the RGB channels there, okay? So only RGB is on. I'm going to turn off the lightest and the middle gray, okay? So lightest gray and middle gray are not turned on. Only RGB, turn that off. Only RGB should be turned on. And let's go back. What I'm going to do here is return to my color range, and I am going to I'm going to return to my color range, and I'm going to pick the dark gray and the black. I'm just not going to make that video. I'm going to cut the video here to save a little bit of space. And when I come back, I'll have all 4 of my channels selected or saved. I'll have light gray, middle gray, dark gray, and black saved. Okay, I'm going to cut this now.